Welcome back to this workshop on entering a community. And we're continuing on Indigenous solutions. In this one, we're going to talk about ideas have consequences. The purpose of this activity is to help participants to understand how worldviews affect how we view others and the world around us. Participants will begin to explore how they should keep in mind people's mindset while participating in or developing PeaceWorks. Our objectives are: participants will understand that mindset change precedes empowerment. Participants will understand the relationship between worldview and life transformation. Participants will take people's worldview in consideration when they're designing life-transforming PeaceWorks. First, show the ideas have consequences illustration with the words below the trees covered. And then you ask this: what do you see? What is the role of each part of the tree? The roots, trunk, branches, and fruit. Then have a volunteer attach each of the four labels: beliefs, values, behavior, consequences, to the part of the tree they think best corresponds to the roots, trunk, limbs, and leaves. At the end of the exercise, show Daryl Miller's arrangement and explain that beliefs are the foundation of a people's values, actions, and ultimately the quality of their lives. Second, show the Growing Healthy Cultures illustration and ask this: what can we learn from the pictures of the trees and soils therein? A, trees fertilized with lies are barren and or dead. And B, trees fertilized with some truth show some life and vigor. And C, the more truth the trees are fertilized with, the stronger the tree. And then third, ask the participants to look at both illustrations and draw important conclusions about the impact of true and false ideas on the health of a community. And tell them, what can we learn from both illustrations? Well, for example, A, truth is the foundation of life transformation in the community. B, lies are the foundations for community destruction. And C, truth and lies are not only held by individuals, but corporately by cultures. Then fourth, read the following verses out loud and ask the following question: according to these verses, what is Satan's strategy for destroying people and nations? Revelation 20, verse 3 and 7 and 8 talks about deceiving nations. And 2 Corinthians 4:4 talks about blinding minds. And 1 Timothy 4:1 talks about false teaching. Then fifth, explain that Paul speaks in the epistles about what Satan uses to take us captive. Read Colossians 2:8 to the group and ask, what does Paul identify as the things Satan uses to take people captive? Some answers, for example, are A, hollow and deceptive philosophy; B, human traditions; and C, basic principles of the world. And tell the participants, Satan lies to nations at the level of culture through philosophies and traditions. The spiritual powers impact the physical world through culture. Then in point 6, have the participants break into groups. Assign each group one of the following different giants and determine what a root cause, the false premise, it might be based on. And let's do that for spiritual emptiness, self-serving leadership, poverty, disease, and illiteracy. And seventh, address the root causes. A, PeaceWorks attempt to identify and address the root causes of the giants. B, when causes are effectively addressed, then lasting outcomes are realized. And C, you want to understand the difference between outcomes and outputs. Outcomes, for example, are lasting results. Those would be raising people out of poverty, for example. And outputs are temporary results. For example, feeding the hungry. Outputs are biblical activities that can lead to longer-term relationships and long-term outcomes. But ultimately, we're all looking for long-term outcomes. So I want you to take just some time as peace leaders to discuss how ideas have consequences.